Hey, deserving listeners, sister wives, let's watch and see what happens.
If you thought you would come over, and I said
No,
I wasn't optimistic.
No, I'm not coming over. I have a house. I have a place where we would have Christmas.
But you put stipulations on it.
No, Janelle.
You put stipulations on it, Kody.
All I want to do is talk to them.
You told me.
No. You can ride that all you want.
Okay, you know what? You keep flipping it on me.
I corrected that completely.
No, you did. Well, too late. I'd already told them.
How is that too late?
I already told them that.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something, but he's not making any sense. And Janelle is being extremely patient given how long this has been going on. So, and maybe something happened off camera that I don't know, but last we heard, he has two stipulations that need to happen in order for the whole family to get together, which is that they need to follow the stricter protocol for COVID, and Gabe and Garrison have to apologize or have a conversation with him. And the implication is it's not him, Kody, apologizing to Garrison and Gabe. It's them, at the very least, showing respect and possibly giving in, or they just know that, well, if we sit down with Dad, he's not going to apologize and he's going to lecture us and we're going to have to agree. And I don't want to, we've already been through that and I don't think that's okay. Plus he's shown no effort to bond with us. He doesn't seem to care. And so I'm done. I hope this isn't the end, but I just don't feel like it. So, so then he says, Janelle, you're the one that's making it so that we can't get together. What are you talking about? And plus, this is, I think, the second Christmas after the pandemic. Everyone's vaccinated. I assume, I hope. Some of them have said that they're vaccinated. Now, if I remember right, this Christmas there was this like Omicron? There was something happening and a lot of people were dying. In fact, I think I heard somewhere that more people died in 2021 or even 2022 from COVID than they did in 2020, something like that. I mean, there were different circumstances because the restrictions and all the laws and all the practices were much different. So it's apples and oranges to some extent. But anyway, there were still a lot of people dying at this point. And so he wouldn't be weird to want to make sure that everyone is being safe, particularly since there are some kids that have some vulnerabilities. It's and there's differing opinions about what risks to take. And within reason, everyone is quote unquote right. And everyone just needs to have compassion for each other. And particularly he needs to be a dad and loving, and, because the whole tone of this thing could have been completely different. Maybe not with Christine, but with all the kids, if he had just put some effort. I mean, he could have had all the same rules and could have applied all the same restrictions if he had just been kind as he was communicating that. But he would tell the sister wives and tell them, you have to get your kids in order. And then they would try, particularly Janelle, and the kids would be like, well, we want to, but I can't because of this, and this. And then Janelle would come back and say, well, they can't because of this, and this. And then he would say, oh, you're undermining me. I'm summarizing it pretty accurately, actually, in my mind. Anyway, so now he's, up until this point, so he's visiting Janelle to talk about Christmas that's coming up. And up until this point, he, in the one-on-one interview that they intersperse and edit in, he doesn't say this word, but I think he's experiencing shame because it's symbolized by there's a small Christmas tree next to him. It looks like Janelle is in a temporary home by herself because I think all of her kids have moved out. And she's in an apartment because she's by herself. Why would she rent a whole house? Why would she buy a whole house? And she doesn't maybe know where things are going to be in the future. So, she's renting an apartment. He's still married to her. And so he comes over and he's asking, like, what are you going to do for Christmas? And some of the kids are going to come to Janelle's house, Janelle's apartment, and they're going to stay in this apartment. and he is now reckoning with the state of affairs in the family. And it's hard for him. Now, even if he could admit that it is basically all because of him, there would still be potentially shame, grief, sadness, and self-hatred. So I think what's happening for him in this moment as he's starting to escalate, I think, is that he's experiencing shame and he doesn't have a way of dealing with it. So he takes it out on other people. I don't know if that's what's going to happen here, but let's watch.
Unless they apologized that they weren't going to be able to
and
come
you
to
didn't
Christmas.
correct it?
So what kind of conversation could happen without my boys issuing an apology to make it safe for them to get together to have a conversation? The mechanics are the same.
Right. And briefly, he is giving weird messages because he is saying on one side, you have to follow these strict precautions. On the other side, he's saying, no, you don't. You just have to have a conversation. Well, which one is it? I thought it was the precaution. Wasn't that the whole reason?
You're not representing very well for me. Stop representing for me.
Well, then you call them, Kody.
Thank you. God damn. So he keeps saying, you're misrepresenting me. You're not being loyal to me. You have to convince them. And she tried. And you basically made it impossible. They would have to completely cut themselves off from, Gabe was going to have to break up with his girlfriend or something and quit his job, not be able to pay his rent. I mean, I don't know how things are financial, but, anyway. So, you got to convince them. You're undermining me. That whole it's just a broken record. And then she says, well, you talk to him. I'm glad. I think this is the first time I've been saying this. You talk to him. They're your kids, God damn it.
Because you always put it back on me.
That phone goes both ways,
you
and I've
put it
been
back
available
on
to
me.
talk to them.
And then he's said that sort of thing before too. Well, they could call me, you're the goddamn father. Yeah, I guess they could call you, you're the dad. And you rejected them. They have, he would say, well, I have reason to be hurt because they're not being loyal. Come on. Yeah, it's an excuse. So on one hand, when he pushes Janelle away, it looks like he's trying to get her to break up with him. But with the kids, I have no reason to not believe that he loves his kids, particularly when they were younger. Something happened. Something's in the way. Depression, the developmental piece I was talking about earlier about how he, at that age, had to sacrifice a lot, and he resents his kids for not having to make those sacrifices. Depression, anxiety, something. Worry about one of his kids dying, so he was helpless and powerless and just utterly terrified, and his only solution was to just cut his mind and heart off from his kids, to just give up. We will do that when we have no other choice. It's like, if I love this person, it's just painful. It's terrifying. And I don't know what to do. So one option is just to turn off my love so that I no longer worry.
It still surprises me that Kody feels like it's my responsibility to facilitate this relationship between he and my children. He's a parent as much as I am.
You are always, all this stuff, you're always flipping it back on me.
It's because it belongs on you,
No,
Janelle.
it does not. Why does it belong on me? Why does it belong on me?
Because you didn't support my stand when it came to actually doing the COVID stuff.
It's a broken record. Yeah, I mean, she was not in alignment, but she was trying, and she was okay. If there was a reasonable way to be loyal to you, Kody, then she was trying to accomplish that. But it was essentially impossible.
Kody, I was protecting my children, and you have said, choose your loyalties or you're not going to have a husband. So I'm supposed to choose between you and our children? That's what you basically said.
All you have to do is support what I'm doing.
So I'm wondering if he even came to this, because the last time they had a sit-down one-on-one on camera was a while back in the last season. And the way it looked to me was he came with a mission to try to make the point that their relationship sucked and that it was natural to break up. Maybe even getting Janelle to say, I'm done with you, I break up. This has a different tone, but if that hypothesis is true, which I can't know, and that's pretty awful to hypothesize about someone, so I want to be careful. But if it is true, or even partially true, well, now he has the perfect opportunity because they actually are fighting. So if that is a mission of his, which I have no reason to believe that's changed, I think he either wants to be only with Robin because, as Christine says, they're soulmates, or he doesn't want to be with any of them. So, that's pretty. He's even said that. He doesn't want to be polygamous anymore. But I think there's there's a potential he's going to see an opportunity here. So let's keep an eye out for him trying to amplify this and tie it not only just to this fight, but also to the viability of their relationship. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And if you sign up, please use the link below because that really helps us out. So it's summertime, y'all. And I don't know about you, but I always associate summer with vacation times and not working so much. And, I've been lately trying to establish a better work-life balance. So this summer, I'm definitely going to lower my work stress. When it comes to that sort of thing, we often think about summer vacations, but we don't always have time or energy for that sort of thing. So we might need more frequent, smaller things to do throughout the summer, right? Like going for a walk in the sun or checking in with your therapist. Well, a great place to find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. They have over 35,000 therapists with a wide variety of styles. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. So unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
About what they were.
No, you didn't give us the list until November.
The list was nothing. We were already talking about it, and everybody was denying it anyway. Listen, I'm tired of being gaslit by you.
You are
guys on this.
gaslighting me. All this, I feel so pressured. This is you saying, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to make it your fault.
So listen, you really need to stop throwing me under the bus, okay?
Okay, you know what? Then you stop throwing me. You act like this is my fault.
I will sometimes observe something that I see in my office where couples will cross a line and there's nothing constructive happening. The tone of voice, the things that they're saying indicates to me that there's really nothing constructive that is going to happen here. It's important to understand that. We can use this as a jumping off point. It's important to understand that line. And one way to identify it, it's hard in the moment though, is to ask yourself when you're in the conversation, am I trying to convince them of something or am I actually listening to them? Because, convincing them of something is a nice way of putting it. From the outside, it could look like you're just barking at them, right? But it might be actually trying to convince them, but usually it's more combative, right? So if you're just trying to convince someone of something, and often it's trying to get the other person to admit that they're wrong. Maybe that's another question you can ask yourself. Am I trying to convince them that they're wrong? Am I positive that they're wrong and I'm right and I need them to admit that they're wrong? That should be a red flag that yourself and the conversation has crossed that Rubicon and there's no point in continuing. That doesn't mean you end the conversation. It just means that, I say all this because in the midst of these conversations, it can often feel like constructive. It can feel like there's an important thing we have to establish here. But if the other person isn't listening and you're not listening to them, it's just going to make things worse. So it looks like that's happening. Now, sometimes that has to happen. People can make those choices, but it has to be framed that way. Sometimes even in my office, when I have couples that will cross the Rubicon and I notice it, I don't stop them necessarily. It's not my job. I'm not their parent. Sometimes I will let them go forward and escalate because I want to assess this. I want to see what typically happens so that I can have a better idea of what happens when they're not in my office, because it can be very informative. Both people might frame their conflict in a way that is different than when I actually witness it. I might be surprised by what I see. I might see someone get more aggressive than they report, that kind of thing. I might also let them go past the Rubicon because I want them to just peter out and turn to me, and then I'll say, okay, so what did we learn there? Because not as a punishment or a I told you so, but just an opportunity in therapy to immediately reflect on what was being said over the past 10 minutes so that they can have some self-awareness on like those different modes that they might get into in their therapy. Other times I might let them go because they're not letting me stop them. I'll try to intervene and they'll say like, and another thing, I had a couple in my very early career. I might have even been an intern. I'm 26 and the couple is, in their 40s and they're married, they have kids, and they're in high conflict, and they were escalating and they'd crossed the Rubicon. And I kept trying to intervene. And from a very early point of my career, I was a very active therapist. I really tried to mix it up with people and, be spontaneous. I had learned from Virginia Satir and Carl Whitaker and others. I mean, not directly from them, but from their videos. But anyway, and so, I like to mix it up, and I'm, trying to get in the middle, and they wouldn't stop. And so my larger point is most of the time when couples in my office cross that line, I will stop them. Because it is not going to help them to do that. And I want to try to bring things back to a constructive place. Again, it's not my job to save them, but if they're going to use the therapy time, they're paying for it. So if they're going to use it the most effectively, then having it just be one big destructive yell fest is, I consider it my job to make sure that I'm doing my part within reason to engineer the time and the space to be as constructive as possible. And so that's part of that anyway. So with this couple in my early career, I was trying to stop them and they wouldn't stop. And I got up kind of, in a crouch position, was like, hey, trying to get their attention. And they were still going at it. And then I grabbed this poster board because I was relegated to this back room because my clients would often make a lot of noise, whether it was families or couples. It wasn't always yelling at each other, but sometimes it was. And they put me in this weird back room, and it was even an outbuilding to some extent. And this room had a bunch of supplies in it, like poster boards for like the drug and alcohol folks. They would bring these poster boards to schools or something, visual displays. And I grabbed one and put it between them so they couldn't see each other. And I was standing in between them with this poster board trying to, put up, blockages. And they were literally grabbing the poster board and going like, and another thing. Anyway, so they've crossed that Rubicon, and I can't imagine, but maybe one of them will pull it back.
Kody, I did nothing. Actions. I sat at home. I did what I was supposed to do, but Janelle, it wasn't ever good enough for you.
This is all I need.
You wanted me to kick the boys out.
This is all I need, is to not sit here and pretend that at Christmas time nothing's wrong.
You act like this is not your fault.
Do you want this relationship between
I don't
you and I
know,
to work?
do you? Because when you say choose your loyalties, choose between me and your children.
Now you are literally gaslighting.
I was not.
She accused him of gaslighting, and now he accused her of gaslighting. It's just another prime example of the misuse of gaslighting and the way in which it's being used. I remember when I was reacting to the Frenemies podcast between Ethan and Trisha, and they did that too. You're gaslighting me. Well, no, you're gaslighting me. Just use a different word. You're lying. You're deceiving. You're tricking. Just keep it simple. So, yeah. So the only person that I think could pull it back from the brink would be her. She typically will, with her steadfastness and her patience, she, I think, doesn't have it anymore. Maybe, I think, because the status of the relationship has become even more distant. And from the end of last season, it sounded like, because, mid-season, she's like, I'm cool, everything's fine. I know I'm not the favorite, Robin's the favorite, but I'm a fine. That seemed to have evolved, and maybe it's evolved further.
Asking everybody to obey the rules of our home.
I agreed to the CDC rules. You had more. And it was never good enough, Kody. I wasn't going to turn my boys out in the middle of a pandemic.
They chose to have their social lives. You keep circumventing the culpability here, and you keep wanting to...
Even if that's true, even if the kids, and there's a lot of kids, so I'm guessing some of them were of the type, because there were some who thought it's not a big deal, it's a hoax, or whatever, they just had their reasons. Even if that's true, that does not mean that Kody is reasonable to completely abandon and reject his kids and not reach out to them, not try, not even talk to them. That's what's happening here. And to not put any effort into even just talking to them. And by the way, they've both indicated that he is estranged from Gabe and from Garrison, and they haven't talked in a really long time. And I'm guessing he's also estranged from other kids. I'm wondering if they have some kind, because there's a lot of other kids that aren't even being mentioned at all, which is fine by me. But I'm wondering if the status or the details are not being presented because they haven't signed a consent to be on the show, or they, I don't know. Maybe all those other relationships are fine. I don't think so, though. Because we're not hearing that. We're not, if he were to say, look, I have great relationships with all the other kids, even Christine's kids, and I talk to them every day, but Gabe and Garrison, we're not hearing that. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, truly, because you deserve it. And take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.